Good morning, everybody here in Strasbourg, and of course those watching us online. Welcome to our S&D Group press conference, and I hand over to our Group President, Iratxe García Pérez.
Buenos días.
Good morning, everyone. It's the 25th of November today, and I'd like to start by recalling the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. Clearly, this isn't a day for celebration, but for commemoration, remembering all those women who have been victims of gender-based violence, and also to demand an action and commitment on the part of all public institutions to combat this scourge, women being killed simply because they are women. Every 10 minutes, a woman is killed due to violence, 140 women a day. We see the data from Europe. 1 in 3 women in Europe has suffered from some type of violence. So let me stress that it is really worth stating clearly that this should be one of the priorities for us in our work, and I myself, as president of this political group, take on this commitment. We ask the Commission to put forward a law classifying this as a crime. Only yes means yes. We've been talking about this for some time. There's been work on the directive on violence against women, but there are other issues, and classifying violence against women as a European crime is vital for us. Now, this issue does need to be our priority for all of us. And at this press conference at the start of this Strasbourg week, I have to talk about Ukraine as well. Yesterday, the political groups stated the need for a debate and a resolution. Over the weekend, the leaders of the political groups were in contact, and our idea as Socialists and Democrats was to suggest this debate, which was a suggestion favourably received by the rest of the groups, and we want to have a resolution to make Europe's position clear. I think it's important that in this debate and in this resolution we clarify the key issues. The plan put forward by the US, though we don't really know who was the author of the plan, whether it was the US or Russia, but in any case, this plan was a real blow and humiliation for Ukraine and the EU. It only satisfies the imperialistic demands of Putin and the economic interests of Trump, and the reduction of the Ukrainian army and the ban on joining NATO are unacceptable. I think we are all clear about that. We knew that Trump would end up abandoning Ukraine. There were a lot of signs of that previously, and the European Union does need to take the initiative. We asked for the amendment of these 28 points in the plan, and I'd like to say something else about this with regard to frozen assets. This group, for 2 years now, has been talking about the need to defreeze the Russian frozen assets so that they can be invested in the reconstruction of Ukraine. 2 years later, this hasn't happened. The Russian frozen assets have not been made available, and Mr. Trump is now saying that not just that these assets should be released, but that part of the money has to be given to the US. And this is in addition to everything that the EU is paying for in Ukraine. And I think this says a lot about what Europe has and hasn't been doing and the real intentions of President Trump. We need to stand firm and united in this Parliament with regard to the situation in Ukraine. And once again, we need to demand an active role for the European Union. And earlier, I said Gaza instead of Ukraine. I had a slip of the tongue, but I'd like to come back to the subject of Gaza, which isn't on the agenda for this plenary. But that doesn't mean the subject has slipped our minds. We're very much concerned with Gaza and the fact that children and families and innocent victims are still being killed. And at the present time, what we need is monitoring by the European Union of this Gaza reconstruction plan, because we think the objectives of the US are taking their course, and we don't want silence to become complicity. So we are asking that the EU play an active role. Sanctions on the government of Israel have been put forward. This is something which needs to be raised and debated. And we need to continue to work actively in the EU to guarantee the reality of the two states, because only if the state of Palestine is recognized can we continue to move forward with a solution to the conflict. So apart from those issues, I wanted to raise deforestation. As you know, on Wednesday, the European Parliament will vote on the revision of the EU regulation on deforestation. We continue to negotiate with the other groups to guarantee that the final position of the European Parliament does not water down the rules on deforestation. Flexibility is acceptable, particularly for small and medium-sized enterprises, but the Council's position goes too far. It is not acceptable for our political group. And once again, this is evidence that with the excuse of cutting red tape, and the European People's Party, the EPP, is just seeking deregulation and ending the Green Deal. But we do not agree. They will come up against us. We continue to negotiate with the other groups and on amendments, but if we cannot reach an agreement with the EPP resolving our concerns, obviously we will have to see how this takes shape in the vote. But I do fear that we will see a majority in this Parliament which does not have much to do with a pro-European majority. Then with regard to NGOs and civil society, organized civil society, as you know, this committee is going to start its work. Our political group rejects it. We reject this scrutiny working group looking at the work of NGOs. The EPP says it's working for transparency, but clearly when we make a proposal about transparency relating to all beneficiaries, not just NGOs, the EPP rejects that. So it's not an exercise in transparency. It is harassment of civil society and NGOs, and we're going to coordinate with the other pro-European groups with regard to any participation we have in this future group. We're working with the other pro-European groups with regard to this working group, which we do not support. So those are the main points I wanted to share with you. And now, of course, I'm very happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you, Iratxe.
Please introduce yourselves. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you very much. Vincenzo Genovese from Euronews. On Ukraine peace deal, considering that the Parliament can of course, debate and vote a resolution, but has no real say or less leverage on this. Do you think that the deal, the commercial deal with the US that the Parliament has to vote, could be in some way used as leverage? Because I remember that at that time it was said that this deal with the US was not a perfect deal, was not a very good deal, but we had to do this commercial deal, trade deal, because of the US support on Ukraine. So if this US support is in some way waning, as you said before, what does it mean for the trade deal, in your opinion?
No, creo que estamos en.
I think that we're at a different stage of negotiations now, and the focus right now, of course, is on Ukraine. And I think the responsibility of all of us here in the European Parliament, along with all the other institutions right now, is to remain focused and make sure that all our efforts go into supporting Ukraine. We need an agreement to make sure that Ukraine can find a way out of the situation. So I don't think that we should link it to trade deals. I mean, it's not the right time. That's not where we are right now.
Hola. Gracias. Hola, preguntaré en español.
Thank you very much. I'll ask my question in Spanish now. My first question is something that you've already touched on, that you went into in your introduction. But I was wondering if you could say a little more about the changes in your relationship with Manfred Weber and the EPP in the light of the omnibus, because you've got a different view of things. Of course, you know, will the results of the first vote change things, or you just have to wait and see what happens in the weeks ahead? Secondly, I wanted to talk about the trade deal between the EU and Morocco, and wondering about Western Sahara and all of this, and whether we were voting in favour or against. Well, on the vote, we're going to be having a discussion in the group today, so I can't tell you right now precisely what the group's position is, because we haven't talked about it yet, something that we'll be doing this very afternoon. Now, when it comes to the EPP's vote at the last plenary and voting alongside the extreme right, what I would say is the following. We take note. And, going forward, I think it is abundantly clear precisely who is doing their level best to destroy this pro-European majority. It's not the S&D, it's not Renew, and it's not the Greens. And I think that it is patently clear who it is. Now, we have held out our hands to the EPP, and we've got to be responsible here in the European Union, nothing more, nothing less. But it is obvious that really the decision lies in the hands of the EPP right now if they want to have an alliance, a pro-European alliance, or if they want to ally with the far right. You know, to what extent are they going to do that? Well, it's not something we could decide here and now, but obviously the situation is not the same as it was, say, 2 months ago. So the problem that I have with the EPP is that they are becoming accustomed to the state of affairs. It's becoming the new normal, if you like. And in a way, the EPP is rehabilitating the far right, bringing them into the fold. And we certainly have a problem with that. This very week, for example, I mean, you just can tot them up for yourselves. You can count the number of times that the EPP is poised to vote with the far right on legislative reports as well as for other votes. And it's more than one, I can tell you. Well, you know, just see what happens with deforestation, for example. Then we've got the report on the gender mainstreaming budget. So keep an eye out for that one. Then you've got the report on the SMEs, Then you've got the AFCO report on subsidiarity. So, just take note of what happens when they are put to the vote. Now, if things do unfold the way we predict, then they will be allying with the far right on a number of occasions. And as I say, if that becomes the new normal, then I think it becomes clear to all of us precisely who is endangering the pro-European alliance. I mean, how long it will hold? Well, we will continue to act responsibly for our part. But as I say, this is outside our control right now. This is in the hands of the EPP. It's up to them to decide whether they wish to make history, but not in a good way.
Okay. Nicoletta, please.
Hello, Nicoletta Yenta for Euractiv. This is on the Mercosur safeguard. If you can clarify a bit better, what is the group line on the vote today and whether you expect the group to vote unanimously on this? Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you. Yes, our group yesterday decided to vote in favour of the urgency of the safeguard. That wasn't our initial position. We would have preferred an accelerated procedure, but now it's on the table. We are clear in our minds that if the trade agreement with Mercosur is adopted, this does need to be with certain guarantees for the European farming sector. This regulation is not the decision on Mercosur, yes or no. That should be clear to all of you. It is an instrument, a safeguard instrument, providing safeguards to the farming sector. And of course, we agree that there should be a regulation providing protection to the farming and animal rearing sector in Europe. So we will vote in favour. When it comes to unanimity, obviously there are different views. There is a majority opinion. But when it comes to the vote, we'll see what the position is. But let me stress, this is a regulation talking about how a trade agreement has to be accompanied by support for the farming sector. We're not talking about Mercosur as such. So I think it is important to make this distinction clear. It is a regulation. If the agreement is adopted, we have a protection mechanism.
Question here. We will see whether we can take more.
Okay.
Yes.
Danielle Weber with the Luxembourg Public Radio. You talked about deforestation. And I was wondering, after the vote in the Council, where many governments, where the Socialists are part of the coalition, voted in favor of the compromise that's discussed right now also in the Parliament, well, that seems to be the basis of the discussions also in the Parliament, according to Mrs. Schneider from EPP. So I was wondering, what's your point on this compromise, and do you think, is there any pressure from European governments on the S&D group to vote to be in favor of this compromise, and could you even say no to it after what happened in the Council? Thank you.
Of course, we can say no. And if the test keep us now only with the Council position, we will say no.
Thank you. Final question, Max.
Hola, buenos días. Max Guerrera, Foro Político. Has dicho historia.
You said you were talking about. Were you talking about an S&D motion of no confidence? You were talking about the good and the bad. Now, we're very creative. When I was talking about the story, the history, that's what you can find in the books. this goes beyond a specific issue in relation to a vote. This Europe has been constructed with a pro-European majority, despite all the differences, and that is something which is in danger now. We're talking about changing the course of history. I mean, obviously, you're doing your job. You do it very well. You can draw all the interpretations you like, but at the present time, I wasn't intending to say this in very specific terms. I will do all I can to stop this happening. But obviously, this group needs to be respected, and we want to be on the right side of history. And there may be those who leave the right path, but it's not a question of an agenda or a strategy. Really, we're very worried, and we want this to be resolved. We're not really thinking of anything else.
To you all, please contact us for your questions, which we couldn't take. Merci beaucoup. Muchas gracias.
Channel 2 English